What is up, everyone, and welcome to our review of the Topsky Standing Dual Motor Desk. Now in this video, we're going to be giving you our honest opinion and review about this desk, going over some of the benefits and the key specs about it, and then later on in this video, in fact, if you want to skip forward to that part and just get straight to the meat, we are going to show you the actual instructions and how to assemble this desk. So if you want to skip to that part, go ahead and click on this timestamp right here. Let's go ahead and jump into the key specs. First key spec we'll talk about here is that this is a dual motor desk, and that's what really sets this apart from a lot of other competitors on Amazon or just even online. That means it has two different motors, one on the left and one on the right. And what this means for you is a much quieter raising and lowering aspect. It's not going to make a ton of noise like some of these other desks do. They're so noisy. This one is super quiet. Another perk of this being a dual motor desk, it can support up to 225 pounds, which means you can put a pretty big and a pretty thick tabletop on top of this. Now, that doesn't mean you should go put, a 5-inch thick tabletop on there, but you can support a pretty big tabletop and a ton of your monitors up there, your desktop, whatever it is.
The other cool thing about this is this desk goes from 27.5 to 47.3 inches. That gives you a ton of space. So it allows that thing to rise all the way up so that you can stand up, stretch out when you're working. And like Caden had just mentioned, with those dual motors, when it's raising up to that height, it's pretty effortless. And that's with a 70-inch tabletop that we have on this. You guys will see that in the assembly video, but it's got a 59-inch frame that allows for you to kind of contract and push that frame in or push that out. So that allowed us to put a 70-inch countertop from IKEA onto that. So it was a massive table, but what I really like about this frame is that it's adjustable.
Yeah.
So if you got a smaller space, go ahead and bring that in, put a smaller tabletop on that.
Yeah, so there's tons of different options you can go, and that's why I really like this one, because it's super customizable. And speaking of customizable, it has 3 different save options, which means you can set 3 different basically user profiles. Maybe you have different people using that desk throughout the day, or maybe just switching between your sitting height and standing height. So it's super easy for you to save a certain standing height. Maybe you want to stand at 35 inches, right, or whatever. Or maybe you want to have your sitting height at around, 32 inches, or whatever it is. It's super easy for you to save that profile to the 3 different trays they have, which means you can click any one of those numbers and go right to that position instantly.
Yeah, and the cool thing about that control, the module on this, is that it's LCD, right? So you actually can see the numbers. I can see exactly how I'm tuning that in to the height that I want it. And like Caden says, I have 3 options to save that. And it's a super easy brain to use, that module. It's really simple to use. Now, the other really cool thing that I like about this desk, and this is where, to me, a desk stands behind its claims of being one of the best desks out there, is that this one's got a year warranty on it.
Yep, so it has a year-long warranty. If any manufacturing defects happen or your motors go out, you go ahead, just shoot them an email, and they will help you get that fixed or replaced. So, enough talking about the key features. Now, let's go ahead and talk about just what are the actual benefits of owning a desk like this. First benefit is, this is so easy to set up. You don't have to be super DIY friendly or super crafty or handy, right? This is really easy to set up. It probably took us, under 30 minutes?
Honestly, 30 minutes.
It's not going to take you super long. They provide you all of the tools. As you'll see later in this video, we use a drill just to make things faster. But even if you don't have a drill, they still give you everything you would need to set up your desk. Next is that you don't have to buy a tabletop from them. They do have the option that you can buy tabletops with the desk, but for us, we had a little bit of a different idea, style in mind. So it really helps that you can kind of style and customize it to whatever fits your taste. For us, that happened to be the lighter color, the tabletops that we get from IKEA. That was a super great option for us because it was 70 inches, super big for our workflow. We need a lot of room on our desk, and it perfectly matches kind of my aesthetic and my style I like to have.
I really did love that, the ability to just get the frame and put whatever desktop you want on there. Everyone's going to have a different, aesthetic that they're doing in their house. So luckily, we have kind of the same aesthetic. So our offices are similar, but it was cool just to be able to pick up that tabletop and throw it on there. Now, why would you get a standing desk? Now, we've had desk risers that you manually lift up. Caden and I and Dee on the other channel, we spend a lot of time at our desk on the computer. Now, if you didn't know, we also run a channel called Money Growth Academy that you can check out down below in the link, but we are constantly at our desk creating content, which means a lot of editing, a lot of filming, and then our daily jobs, a lot of work sitting down on our butts. Your butt gets sore when you're sitting that long, and it just decreases blood flow, which really drags on your mood overall. I don't know if you feel that.
Yeah, definitely. You can feel it. You already know if you work a traditional office job, sitting all day, you're just waiting for those times you have that little break to go to the break room or just walk around the office. You already know sitting all day is just a drag.
Exactly. So right when I start to feel that slump, I just hit my preset now, beep, and it stands up. I've got a nice mat that I bought off of Amazon just to stand on, which is nice and cushioned, or I've kind of got a balancing board that I can use to keep my body active. And then I just sit there and work, and I chug out some more work. And then once my legs kind of get tired, then I'll sit back down and I feel re-energized, ready to go. I honestly didn't know how much of a difference that was going to make until I actually tried a good standing desk like this Topsky.
So those are the key benefits of having a Topsky dual motor standing desk, guys. There's a ton of different benefits, but that's all we have time for now. So let's go ahead and jump into the instructional part of us putting this together. All right, so here we go, guys. So obviously, you got your operation manual there, how to put everything together. And to put this together, it's actually pretty simple. You'll obviously need a drill or a screwdriver. This, is both. And you'll need some different types of bits. So in the box here, we have all of our different parts. We'll go ahead and just get all these out now. And here is obviously our motors. Now, a thing to note right here, we'll go into this later, but this is actually dual motors, which makes this a much better option than your traditional frames you can get on Amazon. Okay, so here are all of our parts right here, all laid out. As you can see, we've got a ton of screws here for all of our different pieces we have to assemble. Now, if you read the instructions carefully, we'll also go over it throughout the video. First step, like I was talking about, is we're going to set up our extension tubes, and this is what you're going to end up later on securing to your desk, and this is what's really gonna hold up that frame that you'll later attach to your motors and your legs. So, right here, we're gonna be using our M6x8 screws right here. And we'll put up a picture of the back, but these are the smaller screws here. So now when you lay out these pipes, guys, what you want to make sure to do is you want to make sure, see how I have these tabs right here on the outside and facing each other? You want that to be the same way, but just opposite on this backside facing you. Next, what you're going to do is grab one of your extension tubes, very easily, just slide it in. Now this will depend a lot on the length of your desk, what you really need it to be to support your desk. We happen to have a 74-inch table, and I've already built one of these, so I know I pretty much need this at the very furthest it can extend. Next, what you're going to do is grab one of your Allen wrenches. Now, they happen to provide you with one of these, which makes it really easy, but I have a drill with the Allen wrench attachment on the top just to speed things up. Now, all you got to do is just simply screw it onto there. Don't do it super tight because you may need to adjust it later on. You'll see when we go to flip this on top of the desk. Does not take long at all. Then just go ahead and do that with your second extension tube as well. Once you got these both all screwed in, go ahead, just put them up side by side on each other, kind of line them up and just make sure that they are just about the exact same size. As you see, mine all line up perfectly here, so we're all good just to move on to step 2. So real quick, before we move on to that, what I want to mention is if you are happening to build the exact same build we have with the tabletop from IKEA, the distance between these extension rail tubes and your extension rail is about 18 1/8 inches. That's this pipe right here, just so you know if you have the exact same build as this. If not, like I said, keep these screws loose because when you go to flip this on top of your tabletop, you'll be able to slide these back in, slide them out, get whatever it is you need to make sure that it all lines up for you. Okay, so now we are on step 2 where we are going to attach the actual motors to the extension tubes we just built. So let's go ahead and start attaching these motors to the actual extension tubes. So you're going to need to grab your plastic pieces right here. These are just screw guides that you are going to slide into these big holes along the rail. And you're going to need your M6 screws as well. So let's go ahead and start inserting these in, and then we're going to go ahead and start screwing down these motors. We're about to screw in these extension tubes into our motors. As you can see here, there are 2 screw holes, one right there and one right here. So you're going to line those up with these 2 big holes in the frame. As you'll see, it's a big hole on the front side. On the back side, you'll have the smaller holes. So that is why you're going to be using these screw guides. You'll just pop these in. It just helps guide the screw as you get in the end, so it's a lot easier to get it through that back smaller hole. And all you're going to do is just stick it through, as you see right there, and we're just going to attach it to the motor. And just like that, you screw the first one in. As you can see, this is way quicker than with the Allen wrench they gave you. So if you do happen to have a way to use a power tool, I highly suggest you do. It'll make the job way faster. And just like that. And it is important to note, guys, do not over tighten these things. Don't go too crazy because you will strip out the threads inside of the motor if you go too crazy. So just take it easy, put your drill on a low setting and just screw it in. And it is definitely easier if you get one just a little bit in. That way you can still kind of bend the rail and see in between to see exactly where your screw hole is to make sure you get lined up. We'll get the other side done and move on to step 3. Okay, so let's move on to step 3. We are going to be attaching our side rails here, guys. These are our side supports that will screw into our desktops to hold it up straight and steady. So we will still be using the M610 screws right here, and those are going to go right through these 2 holes right here on the front of it. So let's go ahead and line it up and screw it in on the side. So as you saw earlier, we have these 2 screws right here, and we have 2 screw holes right here. That is what we are going to be screwing into. A little hard to see right now because it's all kind of blacked out, but let's go ahead. We're going to line it up. Remember, you don't have to over crank these things like crazy, especially when you're trying to get the other screw in. That way you can still line it up. So with that other screw still pretty loose, I can just screw this one right in, and now I can tighten back down this other one. But again, not over tightening. So I'm gonna get the other side in and we'll move on to step 4. So now we are on finally step 4, where we are going to be attaching the feet to the actual frame that we have been building. It's very simple to do this, guys. It just takes 4 screws. And for that, we are going to be using the regular M630 screws. These are the longest bolts that you're going to receive. So let's go ahead, get the feet lined up and start screwing these down. Installing these feet is super simple. Like I said, you have these 4 screw holes right on the top that are going to need to line up with these 4 screw holes right here. Now again, this is where having a drill is going to come in a lot more handy than having to hand tighten these long bolts with an Allen wrench by hand. Then once you have them all in, give them all a nice quick tighten. And that is good. So we're gonna get the other side in and move on to step 5. Okay, so we're here at step 5 where we're finally attaching our frame to our actual tabletop now. So as you can see here, we have our tabletop turned upside down because obviously we're not screwing onto the other side of the table. So make sure you got that right. Just saying, you don't wanna mess that one up. So to make sure you have this center, guys, there's probably 100 different ways, 1,000 different ways you could do this. But one way that we decided to do it is just take the total width of your actual tabletop, whatever that is. Ours happens to be 74 inches. Divide that in half, find your center line, draw a center line, right? And you're gonna line up your frame exactly on that center line. And then to make sure it's lined up the other way, take the width of your table, divide that in half, draw a center line. We have one in here. You can't really see it probably, but we have a line in here, and you're gonna line up your frame on that center line as well. So it's really that easy. It's gonna take a little bit of time, a little bit of measurements, I'm sure, and then make sure you grab something like a square here or something, just to make sure your edges are actually all straight. So we're gonna be using the 4.8 by 16 tapping screws here. These you don't need to pre-drill, you can pre-drill. Really depends on the surface you're using. You might want to pre-drill if you have a harder wood. This table is just laminate though, so we're just gonna go ahead and use these tapping screws right into it. So with our self-tapping screws here, guys, as you see, I already have these pre-sunk just a little bit, but just make sure when you're doing this and you're sinking these, go slow because depending on the tabletop you have, you don't wanna just strip out the hole. So just go slow, let the screw head do the work. It's self-tapping, so it will drill its way in. Just don't try and crank it down too fast. Now again, just like when doing the rest of the frame, don't get these all the way down. I mean, get them down, but don't over tighten them. That way there's still room to move, because as soon as you tighten them down, you're gonna lift up the frame on the other side. So now that we have this side in, we're gonna go tighten down the other side, then we'll move to the inside screws. With our 4 corner screws all tightened down, we can go ahead and move on to these inside screw holes. Now these ones you can go ahead and tighten all the way on the first go because your 4 corners are already pinned, so this desk is not going to move anymore. So now for the second part of step 5, we are going to be attaching the control panel to our actual desk frame, which is going to allow us to raise the desk up and down, set our settings, etc. So here down here is our control panel, as you see here. And you're going to mount it upside down. Now you can mount this anywhere really on the desk, in the center, on the side, no matter, really anywhere you want to. For us though, because we are right-handed, it's a little bit easier just to have this on the right hand of the desk. So we're going to be putting it right up here. Now, one thing to note is you're going to want to attach all of your cables before you screw this down so you know everything is going to reach. They do provide you with one extension cable here, but the other one, as you see, is short. So that means that this cable right here, whichever your shorter one is, has to be able to reach the cable box on its own. So with that cable solved right there, we can get this one plugged in on the other side. Get that clipped in. And now we can plug that in. So now we know our range of motion of how far we can get this. Obviously, we can't go out there because of our desk size. And so we got to figure out where we're going to put it. So I'm figuring probably just right here will look pretty nice and clean up against this guardrail. So I have something to keep this nice and straight. Now go ahead, also kind of get your power attached here as well. Get that attached, let your brick sit right in the middle, just so you kind of have an idea of how everything is going to look, so you know if you're going to need to adjust this at all. But I'm pretty happy with how this is going to look. Obviously, we can clean up these cables later, so we're just going to use the ST3 5x16 tapping screws here, and we're just going to put one on each side to hold it down, and it will be nice and sturdy. So it's time to attach this control panel down. So as you can see here, it has this top lip right here. This will be the visible lip. Now, you can really mount this however you want. If you want a little bit to poke out, if you want it to kind of hang further back, do whatever you want. But we want this to sit much more flush with the desk, this bottom lip that is, so that this sticks out front of the desk so it's easier to access those buttons. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball that, line it up. And as you see, quick to mention here, it has these tracks right here, right? So no matter where you end up setting this, you will have room to adjust this back and forth on those screws if it's not exactly where you want it, or if you want to move it back. So with this kind of where I want it, I'll go ahead and line it up, and I'll sink this one screw. Again, nice and slow, kind of get that down. And like I said, as you can see, I still have some play here to kind of move this around. So that looks pretty straight to me. I like that. We'll get this other side down. Okay, so there it is, all nice and tidied in there. And like I was saying earlier, these screws are adjustable because you have this track system here. So once you flip it up, if it looks a little crooked, go ahead, just loosen those up, straighten it out, and tighten it back down to where it looks nice and straight for you. Okay, so now I just want to mention this really quick. Now you have all this kind of cable mess down here. You have your power plug down here, this big brick. You have this big long cable. They provide you a few of these nice 3M kind of zip tie cable management things, right? So you 3M that on the side, put your cable through and zip tie that so it stays nice and tight against that rail. We're going to go ahead and kind of stick this down to our liking of cable management because we're going to have a lot more cables running through here. So I would definitely suggest, do whatever fits your need best for your cable management. Maybe don't stick these on until you got your desk flipped up and you have all of your cables back on your desk, like your computer, chargers, and all of that. That way you don't waste these, only sticking one cable down and getting them in weird locations. Go ahead, just flip it up first. Get your monitors or whatever else needs to get plugged in, then go back, use things like this, or use some other cable management systems, whichever to your liking. So let's get this flipped up and get it turned on. Okay, so now that we have the desk flipped back up, what we need to do is reset it, right? Anytime the power plug comes unplugged or it's the first setup, it needs to be reset. So make sure you take note of that. If you set this, then unplug the power, you're going to have to reset it. So to reset the desk manually, all you'll do is hold the down arrow, and reset, and E1 will start to blink. Keep holding that down arrow for a few more seconds, and the desk will move automatically back up to 27.6. If it displays that unit right there, then your desk is at the proper height now, and now you can move it freely up and down and set your save settings. So for example, if I want to set a save setting here at 30.1 inches, all I'm going to do is at 30.1 inches, I'm going to click S, hold that until it starts to blink. Then I want to save that to slot number 1. I will click that, I will alternate, then I'll click save again. Now, no matter where I move this desk, if I click 1 again, it will go right back down to that exact 30.1 inches. So you can do that for all the numbers here, guys. Really, really easy. So now this is all set up. Let's go ahead, get our monitors back up, all of our cables back in, tidy everything up, and show you the finished product. And there you have it, the full review on the Topsky desk frame with the IKEA top. Guys, this thing is a game changer for work productivity. I'm in love with this thing. The links are down below for this desk. Also, make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel and go ahead and check out our other channels down in the links below.